So, how you doing, everyone? I'm conscious of people's time. My name is Robert Fitzhugh, and my organization or my business is Film Smart Pro. And effectively, what I do is I teach businesses how to create content themselves and how to kind of promote themselves online using accessible technology that they have at their disposal. So, I was asked today to come in and just do a kind of a little taster about what it is we would do in the course and what it is the expectation that I think that we should have as small business owners or people starting out to create businesses, on how to promote ourselves and really how to think about the tools that we have in our pocket and how powerful that they are. As I said, I'm a real stickler for visuals. So me talking to you now, I am disgusted with myself. Normally I have an amazing pink light and normally I have a nice light on my face and stuff like that. None of that will work for some reason. So you get to see what my actual day-to-day, I would never, ever go online like this, but that's just me. I have a filmmaking background. So that is just the level of disgust that I am at myself today is unbelievable. But anyway, so I kind of want to give a brief kind of walk through a little bit about kind of the type of stuff that we would do in a longer form. Now, I only have about 45 minutes. So there's not much I can do in terms of kind of getting it and doing stuff. And what I would say is that the longer term version of this course is ideally fully practical. And what I mean by that is I'm not really a fan of I don't know what value there is to someone to necessarily come in and explaining a bunch of things. So really it's about how to create content. It's about how to put content together. It's physically doing it in the class. It's walking away from the class with the skills to be able to initially start editing video, cutting video together. I know there's a lot of people on the call, so I'm not 100% sure what people's skill levels are at. There's an expectation now moving forward in the world, particularly in regards to education for younger people, that being able to edit videos and pictures is sort of a skill set that we all, I suppose, need to have. And so the purpose of this is really just to kind of talk you through really content online, a bit about the strategy, a bit about the why. And the one thing I find with all of this is effectively it's so there's a certain demographic of people, myself included, who would have grown up enamored by the power of television and enamored by the power of screens and television. It also means that, you know, to get on television and to appear on screen was sort of a big deal. I mean, I was on TV3 for an interview maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And but I mean, my entire family's life stopped. Do you know what I mean? They all gathered around to watch me on television. So television has this power, and that power is kind of inadvertently moved its way onto social media and inadvertently moved its way onto content, which means there's a certain demographic of people, and myself is included in that, who are somewhat at a disadvantage, because we associate the power that has and video has with the same kind of pull and lure of television. And really that can act as a blocking point for people who want to create content for their business, because either they're overthinking it or they're putting too much effort into it, or they're saying to themselves, and I'd be guilty of this as well, they're saying to themselves, oh, that's not good enough, I don't look right. You know, especially if it's something you're uncomfortable doing, which a lot of people are, you start to manufacture different reasons for why you don't want to create the video. And something I always say is, you know, like my office is imploded today, but generally my office is designed so that I never have to move or play around with anything, because I know that if I have to move a light or move a couch or move a chair or do any sort of, if there's any sort of blocking point between me and pressing record, really I'll generate excuses not to do it because I'll define it as too much work or whatever. So in terms of the skill set you need to be content creators, the skill set you need to create content for your business, you don't really need to be skilled. A lot of this is about just doing it. And in the longer term class, I would show you how to edit video and I would show you the tools that are in your pocket to be able to do it. But really the only way you'll master something like that is by doing it. So like a lot of things, and one of the things I found running the courses that I've run over the years is the technical side of it you'll learn, the technical side of it you'll pick up. it's the idea side of it and the planning side of it that cripples people most of the time. It's sitting around and saying, what am I going to do? I have to come up with a video today. I need to create something out there. And if you're busy people, especially if you are working for yourself, or if you have numerous different things on the go, this idea that you're going to generate new content every day. I do it for a living and I can't do that. It's too much of a tax on my mental energy, and it will require me to think too much about that and nothing else. And I laugh with my wife always slags me because I manage, I don't know, 7 or 8 different social media accounts. I create content nonstop. But my wife's like, how come you don't spend time, scrolling through Instagram looking at videos? And I said, because if I do that and I see something, I will drop everything and spend the rest of my day trying to figure out how to make that. So I'm easily led by stuff online. So I generally try to avoid it. I try to, if I want to come up with idea generation, I will sit down and I will spend time and I will put content together. But we'll cover all that now. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things. Let me just fix up some stuff here in the background. Let me just rotate that. Yeah, so we'll do it this way, right? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of the background of it, the why. I'll try and give some practical tips. I do have some questions for the group. I'd be interested in people putting their answers in the chat, just so I can get a scale for what people think. I understand that I can't talk to everyone on the call. Normally, I try to ascertain a little bit about what it is you do and what you're hoping to do. As I said, this is a very much a generic overview of things, and the class would be very much geared towards the practical side of it. So I can't obviously. So the quick question I have for everyone in the group, and we're going to just dive straight in, and we're going to talk about content, okay? And we're going to talk about representation, and we're going to talk about how we perceive things online. Okay, so this is a question I have. If people are in a position to be able to type in their answers, they're in a position to be able to answer this. This would be great. I hope you do, because it'll be a short slide if not. So this is a still from a video that was sent to me a couple of years ago. Okay, and oftentimes when I'm sent things that, oh no, back up. I didn't pause that. Sorry, 2 seconds. Let me just pause that. So oftentimes when I'm sent videos to edit, or I have a background in filmmaking and I work an awful lot with filmmakers as well, oftentimes I will bank things that I think are of educational value to people down the line. So this is a screen grab. And what I mean by that is one still image from a video that was sent to me, and I was asked to edit it for this business. Okay. So I should preface by saying that is not her actual face. And I know that sounds silly, but one time I did a class and somebody said that they thought that maybe she had done something to her face. So I should probably point out that I have covered this person's face for obvious reasons. This, if anyone knows this person, please don't tell her that I used this picture. But again, I think there's a lot of details to be gleaned from just this image. Okay, so perception is important. Also, as everyone knows, they use social media, especially if you're using it for your business. At this present moment in time, being online is the equivalent of having a fire hydrant full of information thrown in your face at all times. Okay, so particularly on formats or on platforms like Instagram and things like that, people are processing images and videos really, really quickly. I think that it's 60,000 times per second or something like that is the speed at which we process images. Okay, so we won't spend long on something, and you hear an awful lot these days about an attention deficit economy. You hear about like, oh, people are can't pay attention to anything, and they need to be everything needs to be quicker and faster. And to a degree, that is true. I think the attention thing is not necessarily 100% true. YouTube being a prime example of that. I think you need to think about platforms and social media and the type of content you're creating by the audience. So not what a lot of us do at the moment is we create one thing and we use it across several different platforms. And that is not really a relevant way of doing it, because different platforms record and view things differently. And so your audience on Facebook and your audience on YouTube or sorry, your audience on Instagram would say, and your YouTube audience are two very different audiences. They're interacting with those platforms for very different reasons. Your Instagram audience more than likely are, you look at your own user habits. So you're probably picking up your phone between tasks, or you're getting a coffee, you're scrolling through, you're consuming fast information, and you're moving on. YouTube, on the other hand, people treat like television. So when I can't speak for yourselves, but when I don't scroll through YouTube, generally, if I sit down to watch something on YouTube, I am spending time. I'm mentally block booking time to say, I have time to indulge in a video, which means I'm willing to watch something longer. Hence why longer form content works better on YouTube, because people are willing to spend more time watching it. Oftentimes, as I said, it substitutes television. It's the same way people probably don't really consume longer form content as much on Instagram or TikTok anymore, because of how they tend to use it. As I said, they're between tasks, they're using things and things like that. Okay. So I'll bring you back to this video here. So this video here is a piece of content that I was asked to edit. And by edit, I mean I was asked to try and fix. Okay. Now, some caveats to this. This video was not a video for social media. This video was a website video. The reason I would say caveat on that is there's long-term content and there's short-term content. What we'd be talking about here and in the longer class, the larger class, is short-term content, which is basically disposable content. It comes back to this attention idea where people are saying, well, you have to kind of interact with something. It used to be 3 times. I think it might be 5 or 7 times now before you can get across a point to somebody or they'll remember it. Okay. So if you are thinking of doing content for your website, so if you're thinking of creating a video for your website, like this person here was, I would say, don't do that. Don't do it yourself. Hire somebody to do it, get somebody to do something that's a little bit polished. The reason being is that website content is long-term content. So it's content that's going to be on your website and interacted with and used repeatedly over a long period of time. It's the same way I would always tell someone to get a professional headshot done for LinkedIn or something like that. I always get professional headshots done every 2 years. The reason being is that I'm often asked for photos, for things, for classes, for course and things like that. So I want something that best reflects me and what I do, and is incredibly sculpted and photoshopped, because I know I'm going to get long-term use out of that specific piece of content. So in this particular instance, this person came to me with a website video and they said, hey, Rob, I'm wondering, would you help fix up this video? And I said, well, what's this video for? And they said, well, the video is for the videos for my website. And my first thing was, well, don't do this, just redo it, get it redone. And they were like, no, I don't want to get it redone. I want to use what I have here. And I was like, okay, cool. So the question I have, and I'm hoping if people can interact with their computers, the question I have is, what do you think this person does as a job based on this screen grab, this single image? There's no wrong answers. I am just curious about first impressions and what people glean from something in a short space of time. And what I would point out as a little caveat is, we have now spent longer looking at this image than we've now spent longer looking at this image than a lot of times you would look at something on social media. So this is the luxury of this. But if anyone wants to take some guesses in the chats, does anyone want to take some guesses? I'm interested to know your answers about what this person potentially does as a job. Okay, sorry, I didn't have sound on. I've seen some stuff coming through now. Bear with me a moment. Okay. All right, let's see. Let me scan this out. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go back up to the top here. There's a good few. Thanks for this. Okay, so I've got therapist. I've got gift shop. That's a very interesting answer, Pauline. Writer. A lot of people say writer. I'm going to go out and adjust and say writer is due to the books in the background. I'll give you a hint. The books have nothing to do with it. B&B owner, not a bad shout, Marianne. I could see why. It's very interesting and complex looking house. Counselor, psychiatrist, Sharon, not a bad shout. No one close yet. Writer. Again, the books really doing her a disservice. Personal assistant, life coach, counselor, therapist. Alison, you would be so far the closest. Bookstore, coffee shop, artist, writer, life coach, counselor, publicist, small hotel, B&B, accommodation. Okay, works from home, probably business, part-time creative. This I don't know, but I think potentially yes. Interior designer, florist. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. I'll narrow it down for you. She's a coach. So she is a coach. So she coaches businesses, but what she coaches businesses on is technology. So she helps businesses to get online. Okay. And I think in this image here, I think what we take away from, I think that the online part of it for her in this image is the laptop. Okay. And oftentimes in classes, people find that laptop to be very confusing. It seems like it's there so she can read notes rather than necessarily indicative of what she does as a job. So she is a coach for technology. And the part of the problem I suppose we have with that is if we were speeding, now this is a website video, I'll give you that. But if this was a screen grab from her video and she decided to put this on Instagram, we'd say for argument's sake, would we get that from speeding by this video? Would that be something that we would ascertain from looking at it? Probably not, especially if the video wasn't captioned. And in this case, the video was not captioned. So again, I could talk about captions in a minute and why they're important outside of the obvious, which is accessibility for access for people with disabilities. Captions is a separate thing, and I'll come to it now shortly. So she's a technology coach, teaching people how to set up websites and things like that. Quick question to the group. Okay. Now that you know what she does, and I think, by the way, just as a side thing, I don't mean this as a shaming kind of thing or anything like that, but also the way you dress says something about you in a video and what you do. So really, you want to kind of quickly reflect, you want people to be able to glean that information from you within a couple of seconds. Having text on screen will help that. But really, it's about kind of putting your best foot forward because, as I said, on certain platforms, you are competing for other people's attention. And if your video starts with a static shot like here, where she's sitting and chatting, you're probably going to lose people's interest because they are constantly being bombarded with other things that will capture their interest. So the question I have now is, and you can put this in the things in the comments, what do you think, how do you feel about this person in this frame? So what, and I want you to dig deep on this. What kind of emotions would you think? It can be one word. What do you think? Like this person is a coach. This person is going to dispense advice. They're going to be a guide. What do you feel about this person in this image? Let me just pull up the text here. Where is... sorry, 2 seconds. Am I out of it? Sorry. Excuse me. Jeanette, can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, we can hear you. And you
sorry, I can't get access to the dashboard on Zoom for some reason.
I can give you what the answers are coming.
Yeah, go ahead. I just can't see I'm locked out of the dashboard, so I can see Zoom, but
yeah. So you have a lot of.
Oh, I got it. Sorry, I don't know what was going on there. No, I thought for a second. Okay, cool. So bear with. Let me just scratch back up here. So we've got. Okay, cool. I saw something. Okay, so. No. Wear a suit, more professional, friendly. Okay, good point. Doesn't convey confidence. Ron, very interesting name, and yes, this is true, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. Sloppy, warm, friendly. Polly, not bad. Friendly she is a very friendly person. Relaxed home setting, not fast tracking me to digital solutions. Okay. Again, Sharon, I know we can't go in, and I'm assuming relaxed home settings, not fast tracking me to digital solutions, is a positive thing, and I do agree with that as a positive statement. But I suppose the problem we have is that you would need to engage with the video, find out what she does, to understand that she does digital solutions, to get that feeling. So there's already several blocking points to somebody engaging with that. But as I said, in terms of a feeling for a website video where you've got more of a captive audience, then 100% that could be applicable. Approachable, helpful. She is homely. She is very approachable. Too casual. Should be shot at eye level. Perfect. We're going to come back to that now. And maybe not ideal for somebody. Warm angle makes her small. Yes, perfect. And looks very casual, sideline, colorful, friendly but flaky somehow. We're getting a lot. It might be her emoji face that's giving away the flaky part. Depending on target demographic, friendly, not threatening, energy could be perfect. Ronan, again, a valid point. The friendly, she is now. Target demographic is important. Okay, in this particular instance, she is primarily aimed at older people. Right. So I do agree that what she's doing or what she's putting out would probably work well for that demographic in terms of putting them at ease. Okay. So she is there is some thought that's gone into that. I would say it's probably, from my objective, probably a tiny bit too sloppy, to use someone's word in the text. There is a way to convey that and convey an element of professionalism. Whoever said somebody made some valid points about not authoritative. And yes, and that's part of the reason why I'm asking that question. Her camera tripod is set up too high. So we are looking down at her. So she does seem somewhat small in the frame. So there's a psychological element to it, where we might feel that this person doesn't necessarily have the answers I'm looking for. And because I'm towering over her as she's telling me, I can help you with this. Now, that's not always to say that those angles and that psychological element of it, where if the camera's up too high and the camera's down too low, they are applicable, but they're also rules that are broken 1,000 times. I mean, you often see people and they're wandering down. If anyone follows Roz Purcell on Instagram, she often holds her phone up like this and talks into it, has a way to be able to kind of get more of her surroundings, more of where she is and things like that. And at no point do you feel when you look at that, oh, I'm psychologically, I'm talking down to her. Really, it's designed to give you more of an insight into where she is and the surroundings she is. And given that she does a lot of travel videos, a lot of that makes sense. Also, oftentimes, in order to capture people's attention and in order to, I suppose, offer more unique perspectives and views rather than have somebody talking straight to camera, you will have people changing angles and things like that. And it's one of the things, if anyone is, my favorite platform is LinkedIn. And the reason my favorite platform is LinkedIn is because it's generally full of people who don't know how to talk or use video. So there's a lot of like, hi, my name is Rob, and this is my business. And it's like, this kind of like, I watched a lot of TV growing up. So when a camera's on, I need to act like somebody who's selling something. So I used to think that I used to love LinkedIn because the threshold and the barrier to get traction and make an impression on LinkedIn was very low. You know what I mean? You'd walk down the street holding your phone at a high angle and people would be like, oh my God, you're such a revolutionary content creator. Do you know what I mean? You who is this wizard with a phone? And really all you're doing is injecting a bit of personality and a bit of emotion onto a platform that generally is 75% filled with people who feel compelled to act, quote unquote, professional, in whatever capacity that means. I mean, you define professionalism and you define your business and you define the voice and who you're talking to, and all that plays into it. And, I don't, with the exception of, I've worked with an awful lot of dry businesses and they're very much caught up in this, or legacy businesses, and they're very much caught up in creating video and this is what we do. And I was like, yeah, but does your audience want to watch this? Or are you doing it because you feel that, this is how you have to act? So it's all psychological questions go with that. Okay, perfect. Right. Cool. So we're talking down to her, but the camera's a little bit too high up, a little bit too far away. The room, there's too much going on in this room. Again, your eye is being dragged all over the place. A lot of people thought she was a writer based on the books. So this room, your settings, your location, your surroundings, are generally a factor into that. They give us an idea where she is, but she's also lost in the frame. So if we were speeding through social media or something like that, and we came across this, we'd lose. There's too much visual information for us to take in at one time. It's funny, I work, strange enough, I work with an awful lot of comedians. And one of the things I would say, I mean, I had a meeting with a comedian the other day and they're like, what can I do better? And I was like, well, a lot of your gig shots are too far away from the stage. So you're talking about there's too much distance, and it'd be nice to see you, see a close-up of you, see you, get to see your face, get to see your facial expressions, get to see your emotions. So all that stuff kind of factors into it. Somebody had said warmth. She's a very warm thing. she could have dressed the exact same way. She could have done everything the exact same way, but if the camera was in closer, we might be able to feel some of that warmth. I'd argue if you remove the emoji face, a lot of her warmth gets lost between the distance between her and the camera. Also, her sound was garbage, and that's a separate thing, but her sound was terrible. And what I would say to anyone out there who's starting off creating content or wants to create content for themselves or their business, if you're going to get caught up in, I need a really expensive phone to shoot great video, I would say you don't. What you need is a really good microphone if you want to go down that road, because you can get away with bad visuals, but you can't fake bad sound. And so the example I always use when I'm teaching filmmakers is, if I left a lens cap on a camera and didn't record visuals for the first 5 minutes of my movie, if somebody turned to me and said, how come the start of your movie was so dark? I could probably bullshit them and say, oh, well, you know what? My main character is very depressed. So the opening 5 minutes of darkness is a reflection of that character's mentality. And I could probably get away with that. But if the sound is terrible and somebody has to squint to lean in to listen to it, or you decide you want to record video outdoors and the wind is blowing and you're getting that annoying thing on the microphone, all that stuff is going to push people away. It's going to make it difficult for people to listen to you. And so it's important to kind of think about these factors. But really, if someone wants to get caught up in best equipment to get for this and best equipment for that, I would just start creating and then buy things based on what you need. And a prime example would be gimbals. If anyone knows what a gimbal is, people often come to me and go, I want to start making videos for my business. Will I buy a gimbal? And I go, well, do you have a tripod? And they go, no. And I go, well, I should probably start there rather than buying some expensive piece of equipment that is going to have some element of learning to it. And if you are not comfortable doing videos, you are going to not want to learn how to use something. And when you try to use it, it's not going to work. And then you're going to say, I give up. I don't want to do this. It's too awkward. It's too uncomfortable. So as I said, a wise friend said to me, life is about design, and it's about limiting the barriers between you and actually doing the thing. So you're more likely to keep doing it. So this is just a breakdown of kind of this video. I've got a couple of minutes left, and I just want to talk a little bit more about the theory behind things and the strategy behind stuff, because the practical side of it will come, and it's the strategy side that matters. And by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to give you one or two kind of apps that you can download and start using straight away, just to get you creating. And many of them probably have it already, but it's just stuff to get you thinking about stuff. Cool. So this is just kind of, I want to define, this goes back to this idea of not posting the same stuff everywhere and treating audiences differently, right? And a microcosm of this would be Instagram. Okay. So, and just to reiterate that audiences are different in different places. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but like the age bracket for people who say use Facebook is drastically different now from the age gap of people who use Instagram. So, if you're running a kids club, right, and you're promoting it on Facebook, probably chances are you should be creating content that's aimed towards the parents and to advise them on the value of letting their kids go to that, rather than creating content aimed at people from the age of 14 to 16, because chances are those eyeballs aren't on that platform and you're wasting your time. So it's just thinking about where your audiences are and adapting your content accordingly. You don't necessarily have to do the same, totally different stuff, but it's just understanding that, people respond differently. I run a film festival. Generally, for the film festival, I generally put still images on Facebook rather than video, because I find from my demographic, which is older, I get more response to still images than I do to video on Facebook. That's just an example of my demographic and how they work. I will create short form, fast video, probably no more than 30 seconds for Instagram and TikTok. But for Facebook, I will stick to still images. And oftentimes I do the same for Twitter, but I won't go down the road of Twitter, and I'm not a big fan of it, and probably won't use it moving forward once there's a viable alternative, which there seems to be in the works. So Instagram is a microcosm of that. And what I mean is that the reason that Instagram works as the best platform, particularly for businesses, is because it's sort of a one-stop shop in terms of being able to capture and grab people at different times of the buyer's journey. And I'm talking very much from a business perspective now. So the buyer's journey being, you know, where people are interacting with your business at different stages. Okay. So Instagram allows you to do that all the way from, you know, literally reeling in new people all the way down to building a fan base and directly selling to them. So there's an advantage to that, right? And the best way to this is the working analogy I have for Instagram's breakdown per audience is this, okay? And I am open to new suggestions. I am open to changing it, but this is the way that makes sense in my head, okay? So when you open your Instagram, you look at your reels, your feed, and for people who aren't familiar, reels are they've replaced Instagram's video, and so it's the short form content, and that effectively any video that you put up on Instagram is now a reel, okay? Effectively, unless it's part of a carousel post. I won't go through the minutia of all that, okay? So you've got your feed post, which is your main tiles, when you open up your Instagram page, and then you have your stories, okay? So the general conception or consensus would be, if I'm posting something on Instagram, I'm posting something, you know, I'm sharing it to feed, I'm sharing it to reels, I'm sharing it to stories, and it's all the same, okay? But each of these three things has three different audiences that are operating on that platform separately in relation to your platform and your business, okay? So the example I'll give you is a restaurant. Okay, so you're walking down the street and you're thinking, I'm hungry. Or maybe you're not thinking you're hungry. Maybe you're just walking down the street and you haven't had lunch yet and you're not even thinking about food. Okay, and out on the street, you see a chalkboard sign, one of those things that you see on the internet all the time, which has like a funny anecdote on it, which is eat here, we will both starve, or something, right? And you glance at it and you kind of go, ha. And then you think, well, you know, maybe I am hungry, and maybe I should check out this cafe or restaurant because I got a positive feeling from their sign, or I learned something from the sign. Okay, so that's your Instagram Reels. Okay, so that's your content that's designed to effectively pull people into your orbit. Okay, so when designing a strategy for social media, or when thinking about your digital content strategy, you're saying to yourself, if depending on your business, obviously it varies slightly, but you're saying to yourself, okay, my real strategy, I want to create video, and I want that video to be designed to target people who might necessarily know that I need my product. So rather than putting up, which you shouldn't do, but rather than putting up, you know, 50% sale off on TVs on Friday, your Reels content might be funny or educational content based around why TVs are important in 2023, or, you know, and TV is a bad example, but, you know, it's something out there so that when somebody scrolls through, they see something that makes them think, oh, I didn't know this, because again, a lot of times if you're trying to sell something online, you're talking to people who in this particular scenario, you're talking to people who might not know they need to buy something, or they might not understand that they have a demand for something. So a lot of it is about conveying that demand and educating them on what it is you do on a very high level. Okay, so to continue with our analogy, you leave the street and you go into the restaurant, okay, and you take a seat, okay, and now your feed post is your menu effectively. So from that analogy on Instagram, somebody has seen a couple of your reels where you're talking about how great TVs are and why you need a TV. And you're like, these people are really good at talking about TVs, and I'm learning loads, or they're very funny with TVs, or they're just very educational. I'm going to follow this account because, you know, now I'm interested in buying a TV and I want to see what these guys are all about. Okay. So you're on your feed now, and they've engaging with that. And so the content here should be a mix of content relevant to your business, but also this is where you might put your you know, people buying TVs, testimonial type stuff. I use this TV, I thought it was great, it's brilliant. Or, you know, this person, I had a great experience buying this TV. Or, you know, you might put up the odd post here that informs people and that your TVs are for sale and things like that. But effectively, like the menu option, you're on your feed now and they're looking through the menu and they're getting a feel for the type of things that you do specifically, the type of stuff that you sell. And that's where you kind of populate that information. There is a slide up. The information here should effectively be evergreen content. And if people are not familiar with evergreen content, what I mean by that is it's content that holds value today as much as it did 2 years ago. A good example of an account for that might be, if anyone knows askpaul.ie, Paul Merriman, who does financial advice. That's a pretty interesting account because, effectively speaking, when you click on it, you are brought to a bunch of interesting topics that are relevant to you regardless. So you start scrolling. I don't know if you've ever been on an Instagram account and you're scrolling through it and you're seeing videos from ages ago that are titled, hey, how to, save money, or what best, fastest way to make $4,000, all this sort of stuff. So it's content that you want to engage with because it's relevant. If you populate your entire content with, hey, this is us on a night out, or this is the time we went and won an award, that content might have value in the moment, because it shows that your company has personality or whatever, but it holds no long-term content. There's no value for new people signing up later on other than seeing, hey, these guys go out drinking. And the example I'll give you is I worked with a skin clinic once, and they would post stuff from we're heading on our Christmas night out, okay, and to be honest with you, bits and pieces of that is not incorrect. It's not wrong, but they were putting stuff up and they were saying, hey, this is our night out. This is our we're going to go out and have great crack for Christmas. And I was saying to them, well, listen, why don't we try and think of ways to turn your skin clinic? Why don't we try and think of doing that, but trying to think of ways that type of content will hold value later on. And the option that we came up with was, rather than saying we're going out for a Christmas party, why not put up a post saying, heading out for a Christmas party tonight, which one should I drink? Which one do you think would have more, which type of wine will damage your skin more? So it became like a kind of a red wine versus white wine, and the effects that has on you going out. So you're still promoting what it is you do. You're still promoting that you have a personality in your brand, but now that post is valuable to somebody who joins your account 2 years later, because they scroll back and they go, oh, I want to know the difference between red wine and white wine. You can still do the culture stuff, but you take that and you put that into your stories, and your stories then is like your behind the scenes, your fan base. You're kind of, hey, this is where the freedom, you're free to kind of do whatever you want in stories, because the people who tune into your stories are your closest people. They're the people most interested in your brand. They're most interested in what you do. So this is where you can inject your personality. The example I use in this picture is the kitchen, because it's behind the scenes. So now you go in and you get to see how the food is made. Okay. So that's the analogy I would use for that. And, my stories can be anything. They can be daft. They can be whatever. They can be in the moment. A lot of times they're unplanned. And there's a freedom to that. And because it's the people who are looking because they're most interested. So they're not necessarily a captive audience. You don't want to bore them because will stop looking at some point. There's plenty of competition. But, in the example of the skin clinic thing I was saying, that's where they should be putting their we're out having drinks on Christmas party type stuff, because that's disposable. It's gone after thing. It holds value in the moment. People look at it, they think this brand's got personality, but also at the same time, it doesn't linger around and offer no value, 2 years from now. So in that particular instance, that's where they're putting their stuff, and that's where their personality is. I would argue don't sell in that capacity. People don't like to be sold to. People don't go on the internet to be sold to, and they generally they go on the internet to be educated or entertained, and really you don't want to sell to people. So you don't want to be kind of putting up these big kind of, hey, buy my thing, or buy this, buy that, buy that. There is a way to do that subtly without necessarily ramming it down people's throats. Can you get away with it occasionally? Yes, if you've got an event coming up or something, or you want to draw attention to it, by all means drop it in. I think the rule used to be 70-30, but I'd imagine a little bit higher. People generally tend to rankle their nose a little now at brands and logos and things like that. So again, people are kind of striving for personality, and if you can nail that personality side of it, you are off to the races. So effectively, let's just give you a bit of an insight into looking at social media in different ways. I'm conscious of the time. Do I have a slide here that shows a thing? This is just general stuff, but I won't go through it because I've kind of covered it already. This graph here, right? Just to give you an idea about content reach on Instagram specifically. Okay, if your strategy is to gain new followers. Now, this has changed a little bit since I did this, but this idea is an example of the reach that you get with the different types of content that you create on that platform specifically. So in this particular scenario here, Reels reaches far more non-followers than your posts. So that also ties into how audiences are interacting with stuff. If your goal is to go back here and pause this, if your goal is to reach out to new people and to attract new people to your business, then a combination of reels and feed posts, like videos, would be the best way to do it. And so constantly creating, informative, high level videos that talk about what you do in a very general way, or talk about the industry in which you work in a very general way, is a surefire way of getting in front of fresh new eyeballs. As you can see down there from the stories perspective, you're not really getting to engage with non-followers there, unless of course somebody is sharing it and sharing it off your platform or sending it to other people. So it's just be mindful that, like in the case of the skin clinic that I was working with, 85% of everything they were doing was in stories. So they were pumping out content, but they weren't talking to anybody other than effectively the same 200 people every time, which is great to a degree, but they wanted to attract new people to the platform, to get new people to come to the clinic, and they were effectively hammering the same 200 people all the time. So they needed to take into account the strategy and how they're going to build for that. I'm conscious of the time and we're nearly up, and I would just say, if anyone looking to get started, an app that you can download for free for Android and iPhone is CapCut, which some people probably use already. And CapCut is kind of the go-to app for editing. Not that you can shoot video in it, but I wouldn't. CapCut is what everyone is using now. So if anyone wants to have a go at downloading that, the great thing about CapCut is if you're super lazy, it's got pre-built-in templates. So it's owned by TikTok. So if you're scrolling through and you see a video you like, you can click a button and it'll bring you to a template, and you can put your own content into that, and it'll recreate that video with your own video footage and photo footage. So it's kind of fun. I wouldn't build an entire strategy around that, but it is kind of fun and very easy to use, and sort of an introduction into editing on your phone. Hopefully that was informative to people. As I said, you can reach out to me if you'd like, or you can reach out to Tangent if you have any questions, and I'm more than happy to engage with people directly with any sort of follow-up stuff.
Thank you so much, Robert. It was great.
No worries.
I learned a lot as well, so thank you.
Perfect.
And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I'm just going to put in the chat box our link to Springboard in case you're interested to join Tangent for our Creative and Cultural Entrepreneurship course starting in September. The deadline to apply is the 8th of August, so feel free to even have a look around, and you'll be lucky to meet again with Rob during the academic year. So